I'm thinking you might have come up with a solution something like this. First question, what are we looking for? What is our unknown? It is your speed on the way up, so we will name that x. Then we organize everything we know. This step is crucial because it tells us what we need to get an answer and whether or not we can figure out values for the parts we need. When can we work out a value? As soon as we have 2 out of 3 parts of the triangle. For the up part of the journey, the time is 16, the speed is x, so we have 2 out of 3 and we can find a value for d. The distance is speed times time, 16x. So we add to our list of what we know. We now have time, speed, and distance for the up part. For the down part, we have the time. What about the speed? Do we have that? Sure. It's 3 miles per hour faster than on the way up. The speed going up is x, so going down, it's x plus 3. That gives us 2 out of the 3 for the down part, and we can use our d equals s times t to get the third part, the distance. The distance down is 8x plus 24, and we add it to our list. We have as much information as we can get for the up part of the trip and for the down part of the trip. Can we find a value from x from what we know? It's time to use our last piece of information, the total distance, 30 miles. The total distance has to equal the distance up plus the distance down, 16x and 8x plus 24. So we put those pieces all together into a linear equation, which you can solve for x, combining like terms, to get 24x alone on the left. And finally, dividing both sides by 24 for an answer of 1/4. 1/4 what? This is the point where you have to pay attention to word problems, because you have to remember what it was you were looking for, or you won't know what it is you've found. We asked, what was your speed on the way up? So 1/4 is 1/4 miles per hour, distance over time, miles and hours. That's what this problem is all about. Notice that the answer would also give you your speed on the way down, if that's what you had been asked for. If you have a passion for completeness, you can substitute 1/4 for x in your list and work everything out. It's a good way to check that your answer makes sense. The distance up works out to be 4 miles. The distance down, 26 miles. Adding up to 30 miles, which checks out perfectly. A problem like this has several steps. In general, there's a basic sequence to follow in solving it. If you have 2 numbers out of 3, you do not need a variable. Just use a formula to solve it. If you only know one number, choose a variable for one of the other 2 and solve it as far as you can. For example, when I said you went down the freeway at 50 miles per hour for 3 hours, you knew right away that you traveled 150 miles. 2 numbers gave you the third. No need to use any x. But on the way up the mountain, all you knew was the time 16, so you used x for your speed and then used those 2 values to get the distance. Since we had to use a variable for speed, it's an incomplete answer, but it makes it possible to keep working toward your final answer. So here's a question. How do you know which of the 2 unknowns to call x? Your choice. It works either way. Suppose I use x for the distance instead of the speed. What happens? First, I change the order on the list, always keeping the things I know best at the top and putting the things I don't know at all at the bottom. In this case, that's the speed. So now I'm looking for the speed. I use my DST triangle to get the formula s equals d over t. The time is 16, the distance is x, so speed is x over 16. I add that information to my list. The fraction here makes this a little more complicated than the way we did it the first time. That might be a signal to go back and look for an easier way, using x for the other unknown instead. That's okay, but we'll take the challenge to press on and demonstrate that the formulas work. For the trip down, we already had our time, 8 hours. The distance is the total distance, 30, minus the distance up, which we called x. So distance is 30 minus x. And the speed is 3 miles per hour faster than the up speed, or 3 plus x over 16. We now have all three parts of a formula we can use as an equation to solve for x. We rewrite it to make it look easier, and from there we apply what we know about simplifying equations with parentheses and fractions. Until we find what we were searching for, which is the value of x. Remember that x was the distance up the mountain. Once we know the value of x, we can figure out the value for everything else on our list. So, we see that you can use x, the variable, for either of your unknowns. It will work either way, but one way might be easier than the other. And remember to ask yourself at the end, what was it that x stands for? And what exactly did the problem ask you to find? Take a look at some more examples of these motion problems, and then do some on your own until you are comfortable listing and solving motion problems. Don't forget to substitute and check your answers. Use what you know, do one step at a time, and you can solve them all.